All right, let's set the scene. It's 2005. The US economy is just roaring. I mean, it feels like everyone is getting rich. Your neighbor just bought a boat. Your cousin just flipped a condo and made like 50 grand in 3 months. The party is in full swing, and man, it feels good.
But in the middle of all this, you've got this one skeptical fund manager. He decides to do some, let's call it, on-the-ground research. He walks into a strip club in Florida, not for the entertainment, but to get a feel for the economy. He strikes up a conversation with one of the dancers, and he asks her, how's she affording her rent? And she just looks at him and goes, "Rent? Oh, honey, I don't pay rent. I own my house." He's stunned. You own a house? She just laughs. "No, sweetie, I own 5 houses and a condo."
And for this guy, that's when the record scratches. The music just stops. 5 houses, think about that. Her income is all cash tips. There's no way to verify it. Probably no real credit check. And somehow, someway, banks had loaned her millions of dollars. That one conversation laid it all bare. It was this terrifying moment of clarity. The whole US economy. It wasn't built on gold. It wasn't built on industry. It was built on a complete and utter lie.
So let's get into it. How on earth did we get here? How did something so crazy become normal? This is a story of one of the biggest financial bubbles in modern history.
Now, this isn't just going to be some dry history lesson, okay? This is really about how a handful of outsiders saw this massive train wreck coming while pretty much everyone else was fast asleep at the wheel. It's a masterclass in developing an investor's mindset, learning how to spot what everyone else is missing.
Okay, so to really get the crash, you've got to understand the machine that built it. Back in the early 2000s, interest rates were at rock bottom. I mean, money was basically free. Banks were just dying to lend it out. But they hit a snag. They ran out of good, qualified borrowers. So they had to get creative.
And when I say creative, I mean just listen to this. This is a real-life example from Bakersfield, California. A strawberry picker, making just $14,000 a year, was given a loan for a $724,000 house. Let me say that again. $14,000 in income, $724,000 in debt. How is that even possible?
Well, the answer was this new financial product with a perfectly sneaky name, the Ninja Loan. And it stands for exactly what it sounds like: no income, no job, and no assets. So you're probably thinking, why in the world would a bank make a loan like that? And the simple, kind of scary answer is, they didn't care if it got paid back. Why? Because they weren't holding on to it. They were packaging it up and selling it straight to Wall Street.
And this is the really critical part: how they managed to hide all that risk. They took thousands of these, garbage loans, right? Think of them as rotten fish, and they blended them all together into this big, complicated package called a collateralized debt obligation, or CDO. It's like this: if you try to sell someone a single rotten fish, nobody's going to buy it. But what if you chop up 1,000 rotten fish, mix them with some old potatoes, call it seafood chowder, and then pay a food critic to give it a 5-star review? Suddenly, everyone wants a bowl. That's what they did. They got rating agencies to stamp these toxic things AAA, making them seem as safe as US government bonds. It's wild.
So, while the whole world is lining up to eat this toxic chowder, there's this one guy sitting by himself in an office in San Jose, and he's not eating. He's looking at the numbers. He's actually reading the ingredients label.
This guy's name was Dr. Michael Burry, and he was absolutely not your typical Wall Street type. For starters, he was a medical doctor. He literally quit his neurology residency to become a full-time investor, an outsider, through and through.
And yeah, he was different. He had a glass eye from when he was a kid. He was later diagnosed with Asperger's, and he was way more comfortable with spreadsheets than with people. The image is just him, alone in his office, blasting heavy metal music and just reading for hours.
See? At his core, Burry was what you'd call a value investor. He was a student of the greats, like Benjamin Graham and Warren Buffett. He believed in what he called forensic analysis, which is just a fancy way of saying he was willing to dig deep into the raw data, into the places nobody else could be bothered to look.
But here's the thing. He wasn't just copying them. He respected them for sure, but he knew that real insight doesn't come from following a guru. It comes from doing your own work. And so, while all these Wall Street CEOs were out on the golf course, Michael Burry did something that, at the time, was truly radical. He actually read the mortgage bond documents. I mean, he downloaded thousands and thousands of pages of the most dense, boring legalese you can imagine. And he started analyzing the individual mortgages packed inside these bonds. And right there, buried deep in the fine print, he saw it all.
He saw the strawberry picker, he saw the stripper with 5 houses, and most importantly, he found the ticking time bomb, these things called teaser rates. See, for the first couple of years, the payments were super low, totally manageable. But then, boom, they would reset, and often triple overnight. He did the math, and he realized the whole system was set to blow up right around 2007. So what does he do? He goes to the big banks, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, you name it, and he tells them he wants to bet against the entire U.S. housing market. They literally laughed in his face. The thinking on Wall Street was, housing prices never go down. It was a golden rule. So they looked at this weird doctor from California and thought he was a total sucker. They happily took his money, basically selling him insurance on a skyscraper they were sure could never ever fall down.
But this brings us to one of the hardest lessons in all of investing, and it's this. Being right too early feels exactly the same as being wrong. Because for 2 long, agonizing years, the bubble just kept getting bigger. The market kept climbing, housing prices soared even higher. The party just got louder and louder, and Michael Burry looked more and more like a complete fool.
The pressure on him was just immense. At one point, his fund was down 18%. His own investors were in open revolt. They were screaming at him, suing him, demanding their money back. It got so bad he had to literally lock up the fund to stop them from bailing. He was totally alone. But he trusted his math more than he trusted the roar of the crowd.
And then, just like his spreadsheets predicted, the timer hit 0. Those teaser rates started to expire, the payments reset, and the defaults began.
It started as a trickle, and then it became a flood. By 2008, the poison had worked its way all the way to the top. Bear Stearns, an 85-year-old Wall Street giant, gone. Just vaporized.
Then, the big one, Lehman Brothers. Its collapse triggered a full-blown global panic. The stock market went into free fall. That seafood chowder, those AA-rated bonds, suddenly everyone realized they were completely worthless. The whole house of cards just came crashing down.
But while the world was burning, back in that office in San Jose, Michael Burry's fund was skyrocketing. His painstaking, lonely analysis was completely vindicated. In the end, he made over $100 million for himself and a staggering $700 million for the few investors who actually stuck it out with him. He didn't win because he got lucky. He won because he looked at the data when everyone else was just looking at the price.
So, when you boil it all down, what's the big lesson here? What can we take away from this absolutely incredible story? Well, the 2008 crash wasn't just a financial crisis. It was a crisis of thinking.
It all happened because an entire economy forgot to ask the value investor's question, which is, what is this thing actually worth? Instead, everyone started asking the speculator's question. Yeah, but how much can I sell it for tomorrow? And that is a fundamental world of difference in mindset.
It really comes down to this core principle. Speculators are obsessed with price. Value investors are obsessed with, you guessed it, value. They understand that those two things, price and value, can be, and often are, wildly different. Michael Burry didn't see a trend. He saw a massive gaping chasm between the price of those mortgage bonds and their true underlying rotten value.
You know, they say history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. The next bubble is always forming somewhere, which means the lesson from Michael Burry is just as relevant today as it ever was. And it really leaves us with one crucial question we have to ask ourselves. Are we just watching the crowd, following the hype, or are we actually taking the time to read the fine print?